what is this shaking? These neurogenic tremors, neurogenic means from the nervous system, tremor means shaking, so it's a shaking that arises from the nervous system. It's opening a door to your subconscious mind and welcoming this mechanism that is inborn in every mammal. I'm just gonna be Princess Leia with my headphones because at the moment I can't figure out how to turn them off. So this is going to be bad.
Okay. If you want to be Princess Leia, you be Princess Leia.
Oh, well, hey.
Oh, it's so good to see you.
Good to see you too. I can't believe it. It's been so long.
I know.
Been so long.
And I know we were going to have a catch up before, but you never know. This could be part of the podcast.
Okay.
Because it's good, it's natural, and yeah, it's amazing to see you. I can't believe it's actually been nearly 2 years, and that's absolutely nuts. What's been happening?
Well, Integrated Human has evolved dramatically. Another company also has been created that's purely devoted to the tremoring part. A lot of fun stuff.
Are you running the tremoring business?
Well, we're using tremoring in Integrated Human as a part of all the stuff that we're doing there. And then I have a company together with a colleague in the United States. We were collected. We'd never met, actually. It was the founder of TRE, trauma and tension releasing exercises. That is kind of like, he's the person who made tremoring known in the world for its therapeutic effect, if you want to call it that. And so he called me and Alex and said, okay, get this stuff moving, get it online, get it out in the world, get it into different professions. And so we've been, it's been an interesting ride.
Wow.
Very interesting ride. Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of cool stuff. It's
you have amazing. A lot of people coming through Integrated Human now, and now you have different packages, because obviously the whole point of it is that you mix different disciplines and modalities in order to gain a wholeness in support for people.
Yeah, it's a curious way. It has evolved so organically with Jason doing his coaching, his mind altering language, in terms of helping people discover themselves. We're not telling anybody anything. He's just guiding people through this process of self-discovery. And you go, oh, that's what I'm doing. Okay, this is why things are not working. Okay, so then what to do about it? And then we set up the framework for making that change using, we use tremoring, we use breathing, meditation, shaman practices, like ceremonies, like drumming, brainwave entrainment, of course, which is also the drumming, but also in how we choose the music that we're using. So there is a lot of different aspects to creating a wholeness to the whole thing, so that you can, because human evolution is a spiral, right? It keeps going, and each round that you do in your own psyche, your own body, your own emotions, your own spirituality, just brings you to another circle, and it goes up and wider and up and wider and up and wider. So it's always, I guess it's the universe always evolves, so we are doomed to always evolve with it. And so this, if you want to call it a system, is a way for people to kind of peel the onion and discover more, become more fully human.
Yeah, I do, because I realized a few years ago, all of these years I've been working on myself, with myself, and going through these transformations, we kind of think we have a goal, which is to, I don't know, make more money or have more freedom or improve our relationships and, you know, fill in the blank. And yet I had this realization one day that the goal is self-realization. As you were saying, self-discovery, that is the goal. And as soon as that clicked inside me, that truth clicked inside me, there was a difference in the way I approached everything.
Yeah.
You know, it was already innate within me, but that somehow just lands a lot more simply because, as you're saying, that spiral just keeps on growing. All we're doing is just realizing more aspects to ourselves
Exactly.
and just finding, wow, I actually got many more skills, and I realized that I can pretty much do anything I want. And now it becomes more down to choice rather than limitation.
Exactly. Yes.
Because and that's been one of the challenges for me, is realizing that, yes, I mean, I could technically become a mathematician. It's there. But what's missing from that equation is that I don't actually have the passion.
Exactly.
And if I had the passion, I would be able to have the skill. But because I
Yes.
don't have the passion,
Exactly.
it's kind of my soul is telling me there's no need to go in this direction because you
Yes.
don't have this innate part of you. That's not why
Exactly.
you're here on this planet right now, to do this.
Exactly. Yes.
You're here for a specific reason.
Yes.
Find what that is. And how we find what that is through peeling off these layers. And then we start to find that more truthful aspect to ourselves. So
Mm.
I love the work you're doing. And
Thank you.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it was, you remember when we met, you know, we were always having this inner joke of what is going on? Because we just
Yeah.
felt like we'd known each other for
Yeah.
lifetimes, all three of
Exactly.
you from
It was
integrated
a, it
healing.
was that was a wild experience all in itself, actually. Yeah.
It was. What is the latest thing for you that's been perhaps something's been uncovering
Mm.
for you
In terms of
in
my own
life?
inner process
You,
or
you and
life
your insight.
outside or
Siv, who are you?
well, I'm an internally growing being,
Mm.
expanding myself into wider and wider aspects of the human experience, I guess.
Have you learned anything about yourself recently?
Recently, yeah, I am recently, very recently, working on another layer of discovery inside myself in terms of who I want to be. I've been actively looking for, okay, what now? What do I need to do to bring everything to the next level? What do I need to do inside myself? And it's been interesting discovering various aspects of where I pull myself down still, where I hold myself back. And it's all like old programming, you know. And when you've been in self development, I've been lucky. I've been in self development since I was a kid, basically, due to my most wonderful parents. And you've been doing this so much that it almost becomes automatic in a way. And that you can really burn yourself because you think, oh, I've been doing this so long, I got it. And then you don't.
That's the trap.
And so I've been like looking at where I need to step up inside myself, both in terms of daring, I thought I dared, but I haven't. I need to move forward, dare to connect to people, dare to understand that I actually have a lot of knowledge, if you know what I mean. It's an odd, I'm just sitting here saying that. It's kind of like, ooh, that's a little embarrassing to me to say because I want to hold back, you know? This little shy girl is popping up instead of someone who's well into her 50s. It's ridiculous. So these old patterns that come up and try to hold you back when it's like, it's past due. Come on, you know,
Mm.
make your move now. Stop holding back. So that's one thing that I've been facing, to stand firm in yourself, in your own sovereignty, not caring about what other people say or what I think they think. I thought I was past it, and then something happened and I wasn't. And I allow my ego to get triggered because of that. And I'm like, oh, come on. What is this? And I spent a few days really digging in and really feeling into it and really like looking at this honestly, deeply, because that's the only thing that works, right? You really have to, and it's not pleasant, but pain is a great teacher, isn't it? One of the greatest. Some of my most insane insights, both in myself and on a vast cosmic level, has always been in relationship to pain. So pain is a great teacher. Suffering, on the other hand, is a whole different thing. That's something you can choose in a more.
That word sovereign that you just mentioned a minute ago, that word sovereign has been coming up a lot for me recently as well, because there's this sense of, and I'm starting to learn more about what that means. It's always been a distant word, but it's this sense of, for me, really owning this body, this energy system, and no matter what's going on around me, being able to remain true and authentic within myself and not get pulled in with the programs and me trying to people please. And so, yeah, this word's been really prevalent for me for the last couple of weeks, especially. And also, it's all relative. Sorry, it's all relative. So you may have gone through many years of, say, personal development and gotten into this space of maybe calling it comfort of that journey. But as you were saying with the spiral, because that never ends, we're always on this new standing point. So how could we judge the next step, which is unknown? Because
Exactly.
the only reason we're going through these new challenges is because we're ready for them. We wouldn't have been ready for them otherwise. So we have to then come and get comfortable with, oh, I'm still a beginner. Okay, here we are again.
Oh, I love that whole concept of being a beginner.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you are a beginner, I want to be the eternal beginner, because it always opens up so many other possibilities and you can freaking just relax. Because you don't have to prove anything. You can just relax and say, yeah, I'm a beginner. I love that.
Well, I like to think of mastery, right? I'm often thinking mastery is me always being a beginner on the journey to mastery. Because when you realize, when any true master knows full well that they're just getting started, they're not going to know everything.
The more you know how little you know.
Yes,
Yeah.
let that sink in.
Yeah. And that's always a good thing to keep in mind.
And that's another reason why I love these kinds of conversations, is because people listening to them get to be reminded that even someone as yourself who is established, I've seen your work, I've experienced your work, I know it's incredible, and you're an amazing teacher, an amazing speaker. And to see that as from my perspective, I'm looking at mastery from this perspective. And yet for you may be going through something where you're realizing, oh, I'm coming up against new patterns and I'm
Oh,
stepping into
totally.
something else.
And I
For
hope
some
that's an
people
eternal
listening,
process. Well, it is, I
yeah,
guess, but maybe.
exactly. People listening, I think it's so refreshing to hear anybody that's still going through the process, because then it gives permission to relax and go, oh, okay, that's okay that I'm also going through my process.
Yeah, I think as long as we live in this human experience, we are going through processes. And then you can either choose. Jason, my husband, says this beautiful thing. He said, choose your pain. Because there will be pain. There will be trauma, there will be stress, there will be challenges. That's just a fact. Nobody escapes that. Nobody. So then, do you want to choose how to handle those things and go through the pain of that? Or do you want to put on blindfolds, stick your head in the sand, try to ignore it, and go through the pain of that? There is if you can use the pain that you experience in life, the challenges, the stress, the traumas, all the stuff that we go through, even the belief systems and social conditioning that you have been exposed to as a child when you had absolutely no filters. Everything was just going straight in and you were basically programmed. And of course we need that, because if we don't survive as human beings. So you need to have that cultural programming. But there is a lot of stuff that there is self-defeating in the long run if you want to move on in your life. So you need to address it then. So lucky us, we have it. So we have something to work with, right? So these programs have a tendency to bring forth the kind of painful experiences that we are served. So when you work with that painful experience in an active, open way to try to change something inside yourself as a consequence of that, you grow. If you don't, you have to experience that over again, maybe in a different way, to try to, if you get slapped on one cheek, or that didn't work, well, let's slap you on the other one, see if that works better. Life provides a different challenge, a different thing to get exposed to in order to bring forth and bring up maybe a slightly different angle, but of the same thing that you need to kind of resolve in yourself in order to move on. So, yeah. Why wait, right? Why not just take it head on?
Why wait? Exactly. Dive straight in. And I feel like I've got a pretty good courage with that as well.
Yeah.
But as we were talking about, there are still things that come up later on in life. And again, I worked on that.
Yeah,
What is going on? And then
exactly.
you've got to step back for a moment, look at the broader picture, and remember, hold on, is it exactly the same? It's more a question of how has it changed, not has it changed, because that how makes it, oh, okay, actually, it was, let's use the scale, right? Let's say it was a 10 out of 10 of a problem 10 years ago and I worked on it. I thought it was a 0, but now I'm 10 years later and it wasn't a 0. Maybe it was enough to get me to the next level that I needed to be at. And then it came back just at the right time for me to now learn the next lesson. Because imagine if it was just so perpetual that it was just always going constantly, we wouldn't have that space to step into the new version of ourselves. So then we look back and go, okay, this thing's now resurfaced. How is it different? Oh, I am so much stronger. My mind is so much clearer. This doesn't shake me anymore, but I'm aware of this problem.
And then you can go through it way faster because because then you have the tools, you have the resiliency, and you have the understanding of what it is at the other side. It's like, so you're much more motivated. I remember, it's so many years ago, 20, 30 years ago, we went to a Tony Robbins. I'm sure you've heard. Yeah, we went to his UPW. What is it? Unleash the Power Within. And he uses this process called the Dickens process, where you basically, simply put, you go inside yourself and you look at what your problem is. And then you look at the consequences of that problem. And you look at 1 or 2 or 3 and 4 consequences, and you stack them all up on top of each other, and you feel the collected pain of staying in that old pattern. And then you go to the other side, and then you look at what if I solved this problem? If I actually have the courage to do what it takes to cross that bridge and solve the problem, what will I feel then? And then he stacks up this feeling, this, and your heart just goes, and you get this massive yeah, I'm going to do this. And I love that idea, because that is such a motivation. Most people will rather, I can't remember the percentage, but it's like over 80% would rather run away from pain than towards pleasure. So it's often not enough to say, hey, and we see this, I'm a chiropractor as a profession, and I will tell people, hey, do these exercises and you'll feel better. Most people don't. They come back half a year later and they're in the same situation because they've been doing the same things. So they won't take the carrot and say, here are the exercises or whatever it is that you need to do in order to stay out of this pain cycle that you're in. But the carrot isn't enough. They have to actually feel the pain in order to do something. But when the pain is gone, they won't do it anymore. So I love that process of stacking up tons of what are the painful consequences of not doing anything? If you have issues changing, if you have issues motivating yourself, you can do this with yourself. Just stack them on top, write it down, stack them on top of each other and see how much pain am I willing to feel? And then you go to the other side where the problem is solved. If sometimes there's a painful action that you have to take in your outer life, making a different job choice maybe, or a partner, or changing the school for your kid because it doesn't work in that school. It could be anything. So doing that action might be difficult, but if you stack up the pain on one side and stack up all the pleasure on the other side, it could be a great way to actually build up the energy to make the transformation in yourself.
There's a quote that I love too, and it's every disciplined effort should have multiple rewards. I mean, it's kind of a lesson, really, right? More than a quote. And it's the same kind of thing, right? Because you use the word motivation, and what that does is it builds motivation. So if you've got a situation that you need to go through or figure out, I'm starting a podcast, or I'm starting my coaching practice. If you write down every single benefit that you could possibly think of around starting that thing, you ramp up the energy and the motivation to make that happen, rather than just thinking, oh, I'm just making a podcast. If you break that down, you could think, well, okay, and you can make it up, right? It doesn't have to be true, but you could say, okay, I will make more connections. I will improve my speaking skills. I'll get better in front of the camera. I may open up new business opportunities. There may be more money. I will have a better lighting system or a better sound system. And guess what? I love music too. So then that will benefit my,
Exactly.
so you start
Yeah.
to see, wow, this is actually really worth taking the step.
You expand, a whole new horizon opens up for you. One of our we have this workshop called the Flow State Continuum Workshop, which is like a 3-day workshop. And one of the guys who's been with us for a little while, he's changed so much. And he used to be so kind of closed in, depressed. He didn't see any possibilities in his life. And then he's been with us for a few, like 2 or 3, maybe 4 workshops now. And I saw him on the street the other day, and he was walking by himself, no headphones, just smiling. And I spoke to a friend of mine who had just spoken to him, and he has made some huge changes in his life. And he says, I want more. I see so many possibilities now. I want more. And my heart just exploded, because it was like seeing a person go from this tunnel vision where everything was closed for him. There was no way out. And then, having done that work on the inside, finding somewhere the courage to do it and step up and dig in his heels and just like, I'm going to do this. And then, boom, it was so awesome.
True transformation just becomes a natural thing. Then you start to just naturally go, I want more. Whereas before, you're kind of going, I want more, but you don't really know. And it's a struggle and you don't believe it yet.
Yeah, you go into hope. Oh, it could have been you buy a lottery ticket and you don't believe that you're going to win, but there is some kind of hope to it. And it's like you have these often thoughts that this that stuff happens to other people, I mean, you don't see any possibilities. You're just stuck in the hamster wheel, isn't that what they call it? You're in your daily routine and that's it. Yeah, so that right there is in terms of awakening. In your message yesterday you were saying that it seems like how can you not go through an awakening these days because it's happening all over. And when you wrote that, I was like, oh, that is so good to hear. It's like I need those inputs from people around because it's so easy to get lost in all the stuff that's happening. Because I truly believe that we need to awaken. We truly need to awaken as human beings. We need to awaken to ourselves, how much we limit to ourselves, and realize how much more we actually are, how connected we are to our beautiful planet. We're not separate from nature. We're not separate from her. I always used to say when I started as a chiropractor, I would say, as long as we treat our bodies the way we treat our bodies, we're going to treat the earth the way we treat the earth. It's like don't feel anything, pop a pill, move on. And that only works for a little while, and then it catches up to you. That you're seeing that people are awakening around you, and it's kind of like an inevitable process. My heart sings. It makes me so happy to hear.
And it's an interesting topic, really, because I don't feel that everyone's awakening. And I don't feel that the purpose is for everyone to awaken. But for those who are feeling that or are awakening, that's where I feel that it's impossible. If you've kind of somewhere down the line, your soul level chosen, this is my path to awaken, it's impossible to avoid that because the energies and the experiences of life keep pulling us into these new experiences and new versions of ourselves. And that's where we need to learn how to work with our systems and understand what's really going on and how we can work with it. Otherwise we stay stuck in a box. For some people, if that's not their path, that's fine, and they probably wouldn't even be listening to this podcast anyway. So that awakening process, it's interesting for me because there's nothing I can do to stop it.
Yeah.
Where I do kind of wish, would you please press pause for just a moment?
Yeah.
Even when things don't seem to be happening around in life and externally, internally, it's absolute chaos
On
going.
like Donkey Kong.
Yeah, and it's just, for me, it's a sense of bringing back into balance, coming back into balance time after time. And then, as we mentioned before, there's a sense of just recognizing, oh, I'm just naturally a different person. Or as you were sharing with the chap walking down the street, he's naturally in a new state and he's smiling. And you even mentioned about he wasn't wearing headphones. That's a really important, that's a really key detail there, because we're so used to having just input the whole time, and smiling in public. Wow. I mean, how many people could actually say they're really comfortable to smile in public, because it's such a programmed thing where we've got to be straight and we've got to be rigid. We're in such a rigid society that when you smile, it almost freaks people out. Like, what are you happy about?
Yeah,
If we're not comfortable in ourselves of just being happy for no reason, I don't have to justify this.
exactly.
Then we'll put back on that mask and be,
Yeah.
oh, let's be serious for everyone, because I'm making other people feel uncomfortable. And it leads me, actually, I'd love to talk, because your work with neurogenic tremoring is amazing. I'd love to dive into that, because
Okay.
I
Cool.
never before I was managing this stage, and you were there at the event, and you hosted a workshop there, and I'd never heard of this before. And it was one of the best workshops I'd seen, and I was part of it as well. I knew I had to be a part of it. But it was also, the whole room was just completely full, and it was so funny because everyone was just sprawled out all over the place. So it was really unique in so many ways. And the question really comes from this space where I'm talking about, we're in a society that's so rigid, and it's designed that way to keep us small, to keep us in this box, in this matrix. And I'd love to hear your perception, or perhaps sharing about how it works, because it's something to do with the vibration and the tremoring within the brainstem. And there's this discomfort with being seen to just let go and just shake and do all of this, which is very natural. There's, in nature, tigers or deer, or sorry, not tigers, but deer, or these, if they have a trauma, and they may lie and pretend to be dead on the floor, maybe they've protected themselves from being killed, but then they'll get up and they'll shake, and to shake out that trauma, and they just get back on with life, and they just don't remain traumatized. In this rigid state of society, how many of us feel this urge to maybe, oh, I've got this discomfort, for want of a better term, in my body, and really, if no one was looking, I might just let my body just shake and go crazy for a moment, but I daren't do that because everyone will think I'm weird, and then we just keep blocking this and holding it in.
That's exactly right.
And so I'd love to hear your perception on that, because you're going to share it way more eloquently than me. No pressure.
Oh, this is such a deep passion for me, Steve. I can talk about this from so many different perspectives. Maybe we could start with how it works in your body. What is it from a neurological point of view? And maybe we should just also define what this neurogenic tremor is, because people haven't heard about it. Some people may have heard about TRE, tension and trauma releasing exercises, from David Berselli, and seen some of his stuff on social media. He's the one who founded the technique as a way of actively using it in trauma treatment, or help anyway. But what it is basically an involuntary tremor that is originating in your autonomic nervous system. So to explain that a little better, the autonomic nervous system is a part of your nervous system that controls all the involuntary activities in your body, like your digestion, your pulse, your immune system, your hormonal system, all the stuff that you don't have to think about. You don't have to think about, oh, today I really have to remember to digest those proteins. Your body does it for you. Thank God. So this is all also your subconscious mind, where it's vast. If you look at, you can use the image of a iceberg. The tip of the iceberg, the tiny little piece there, maybe 5% of it is sticking up above the surface. That's your conscious mind. And all the 95% of the rest of the iceberg is under the ocean. That's your subconscious mind, your autonomic nervous system. Your conscious mind computes, 40 to 50 bits per second, and your subconscious mind computes 11 million bits per second. It's amazing. It's so huge. Imagine all the stuff it does, taking all the information from your body, from everywhere, all at the same time, looking at all of this and sending signals out. Okay, what do we do next? This is happening every moment. You can't divide the moments down small enough. We're hitting the Planck scale here. It's vast. It's huge. It takes in so much information that we can't, with our conscious mind, comprehend it. A tremor is basically, like you were saying, a shaking. So these neurogenic tremors, neurogenic means from the nervous system. Tremor means shaking. So it's a shaking that arises from the nervous system, from your unconscious, your involuntary part. So it's not like, oh, I'm going to shake, and you start to shake because you decide to. It's something that you allow to happen. So we use certain movements in the beginning to help the body move from a conscious choice type movement and just kind of trick it into allowing these tremors to emerge from your nervous system, which are unconscious. When people experience this the first time, they go, oh my God, what's happening to me? Am I doing this? That's usually the first question that comes up. Am I doing this? You couldn't if you tried. Marit, our assistant and CEO of Integrated Human, she tried. She's brilliant. She said, I'm going to try to do this, to tremor like this. She said, after about 5 minutes, I was exhausted. You don't get exhausted. You relax into it, and it's moving through your body. It's an allowing. It's like opening a door to your subconscious mind and welcoming this mechanism that is inborn in every mammal. Animals, like you said, do this naturally. There are some brilliant videos on YouTube showing some of these things in just a beautiful way. And you can see that is not, there's one about an impala. I think if you Google impala and shaking, this will come up. There are several versions of it, but one of them, the longest one, is really the best. You can see that she is not doing this on purpose. It's her body doing it, and she allows it. And when it's finished, she gets up and walks away. So this is something that happens in your body in response to shock, trauma, or any intense experience, good or bad. You win the lottery. I bet when you're holding the phone and you get that you won $1 million, I don't think you'll be able to hold that phone steady. You'll probably be shaking because it's so intense. Or I was at the vet with my dog yesterday, and he had an injection, and there was a student there, and she was going to send this injection, and I felt sorry both for her and the dog because her hand was shaking so bad because it was like an intense experience. She's not experienced in it. So these things they live in us. So when we teach this, it is to allow the body to release tension, stress, trauma, excitement, stuff that has stored itself in the body that you, at the time when it happened, couldn't release it because of whatever. Either because you were literally holding back consciously, or because you were in a situation where you had to deal with the situation. You couldn't, like if you're first, how do you say it? If you come to a car accident as a first person, you can't sit down and cry. You have to call the ambulance. You have to make sure, you have to do things in order to take care of the situation. And then you deal with it later. But then if you don't deal with it later, well, it might become an issue, right? So when we teach this, we teach it in a way in the beginning using exercises to trick the body into accessing this tremor. And then you just relax into it and allow it to do its thing. And usually we start it in like the thighs, pelvic area, because those are your biggest muscles. They're easy to access. And also a muscle called the psoas, it's like your hip flexor, is also strongly linked to the autonomic nervous system. So we get it move. We basically fatigue those muscles in a certain way, and then you relax into it and this tremor emerges. And after a while, for many people, it will move into other parts of the body naturally. Sometimes we assist people in terms of body position or breathing or whatever to help the body get the tremors moving. And it's so beautiful to watch this allowing and see what emerges. Because the body, you are allowing the body to release something old. What it is doesn't make a difference. You don't need to know what it is. Sometimes a memory will come up and you go, oh, this is from, you get pictures or ideas. Other times you don't. It doesn't matter. But when you get to release that, you have room for something new to come in, right? So we basically use the body's own inborn mechanism that we were given by nature to release these things and activate that. It's in us. We all know how to do it, all of us. But we have, like you were saying, we're taught to suppress it. And you can wonder why, but it's actually suppressed in very many cultures, all Western cultures, but also in many primal cultures. Not all. Some primal cultures will allow it in certain situations, or I'm saying allow it, but it's totally accepted and expected in certain situations. For example, in childbirth, some cultures don't consider the birth completed unless the woman giving birth has finished shaking afterwards. So in the West, we look at tremoring generally only through the lens of pathology. We associate it with epilepsy or Parkinson's or some kind of neurological condition. Therefore, also it's being suppressed because we look at it from a disease point of view. We don't understand the difference between a tremor to release and a tremor that is coming from a neurological disease. So there has not been any research in it. Why would you research something you can't medicate? If you know what I mean. This is the opposite of that. I also see something that fascinated me a lot, and maybe you notice it too, is that when you are finished with a session of tremoring, it can last for a couple of minutes, it can last for a long time, depending on what's going on and the setting around it, depending if you're doing it by yourself or in a group where there is a system to it, so to speak. You come out of that and often your mind is just so calm. It's kind of quiet. I remember it was an introduction course, and one of the people came out of the second round of tremoring, and she raised her hand and she says, "How long does this last?" And I was like, "What is this? Tell me." "I don't have any thoughts. It's quiet. My body is quiet. I feel this peace, this silence. I've never felt anything like it." And I said, "Well, just take care of it now. It'll last for a little while, but now you know how to bring it back, right?" So this is my personal opinion. I don't know of anybody who has measured it, but I do believe that it shifts our brain into deeper brain waves, out of beta and into at least alpha, maybe even deeper, theta, possibly deeper. I don't know. So that triggered me to start combining the tremoring process with guided meditations. So we've added that at the end, and finally, I started adding HeartMath and breath work, and it has become its own animal. But the tremoring is truly amazing. Sometimes I want to just stand on rooftops and shout, because I look at it as a force of nature, really a force of nature that lives inside us. And I also look at it as a kind of feminine force of nature, because it is wild, untamed. It's something you have to allow to move through you. It's not coming from here. It's coming from your body, from deep, deep, deep inside the oldest part of your nervous system. This is ancient, you know. So sometimes when I look at someone where this tremoring is moving very freely through the body, it's like looking at Shakti herself moving through. It's so beautiful. And then you can have tremors in different layers. You can have tremors that are so fine that you can barely feel or barely see them. They're more like, like the mobile phone in your pocket. It's like really, really fine buzzing deep, deep, deep inside. And then you can have bigger tremors on top that are visible. And then you can have some really big movements on top of there again. And there's so many layers to it. And the body shifts between these more rapid tremors to what we call neurogenic movement, which is the body just integrating what has just happened and connecting, maybe left side to right side or upper body to lower body. And we see these connections are being created. So neuroplasticity must be involved in this process, because I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, hey, this is the nervous system finding by itself a new solution. It had an issue. We released it. The body is now integrating this and finding a new solution. Now that's, I don't know, deep learning on the deepest level, solution or solving of a problem on the deepest level. And you are allowing it. It's a gift. It's a force of nature inside of every single one of us. And all we need to do is access it.
When we've done a certain amount of the tremoring work, for example, and we've gotten used to understanding what it feels like, and obviously that could change. Some days you may have a really big shake, and then some days you may not have such a big one. It's life, right? It's the same thing with anything, because we're never finished. But when you become more pro at it, let's say, those tremors, we could start, because I feel it more often these days after doing many different things, but also your work has amplified and added more layers to that awareness, which is so wonderful.
Very cool.
Now, say, for example, if I feel the energy building up, rather than tense up, I can surrender and relax more into it. And just like a muscle, or just like a pipe, imagine you've got a pipe that's a millimeter thick, it's really thin, and then you put a crazy sound wave through that pipe's going to just wobble and go nuts. With practice, it's almost you've replaced this pipe with a thicker one. Now it's half a centimeter, then it's a centimeter, and you put that same level of vibration through that pipe. It's not going to shake as much. It's got more control, but you can actually channel even more power through those things. So on a day-to-day basis, when we practice your work, for example, we could start to do that when we're just having a conversation with somebody, feel pressure coming up, and rather than hold that pressure in and then wait till later or get angry at this person, we could actually start to practice strengthening that pipe and allowing mini tremors and mini currents to go through. And it doesn't have to shake the body physically necessarily, but we're still going to be getting the benefits because the system is venting and allowing that to come out.
Yes.
So, yeah.
That's like the really refined. I'm about to put together, I'm thinking about recording this one for people who do tremor, meditation just around that, where you connect to the frequency behind the tremor. What is it like there? And just to increase the awareness around that. It's a beautiful thing. And yes, as you practice, just like you say, you widen the channel. And the more you widen the channel, the more awareness you gain, both around yourself and your resilience increase, in terms of how do you respond to your environment? Do you just react, boom, without any space between? But when you manage to widen that channel, like you're saying, you're doing it in a conversation, it helps you not getting triggered. So instead, you can respond in a conscious way rather than just reacting out of some old program, and you didn't even know that you were making a choice by doing that reaction. Instead, you're responding in a conscious way, and that creates a whole different result, both inside yourself and the other person, and God knows what will happen in our 3D world when you choose like that. I, of course, use a lot of breath to help people with the tremoring. And in terms of using the tremors, I have tremored, like physically tremored with a visible tremor on planes, on trains. I remember the first time I did a Zoom call, I was going to have a breath session on Zoom. I had no idea how this thing was working. And I was sitting there, I was like tremoring my legs under the table the whole time. They were just going because my body is so used to kind of connected to that. And they started, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm just going to let them do their thing. But it's like I was able to keep my upper body still, but my legs were just like finally tremoring. So yeah, it can be used in many different ways. And also in terms of this question that always comes up for people, am I doing this? Especially in the beginning. I often tell the story of when I was on a lunch break in my practice, and I went upstairs. We have a train. We have in our clinic on the third floor. We have a gym. So I was up there training, lifting weights, and I was really tired that day. So after when I was finished with my routine, I lay down, and often I tremor afterwards because I get less lactic acid. I get less sore. I've done a lot of squats, and I was just like, okay, I'm going to lay down and tremor. So I lay down and tremored, but I was so tired, I fell asleep. And then a little while later, I woke up. And when you sleep, you nap like deeply in the day, you wake up and you're a little disoriented. You don't know really where you are and what time it is. And you're a little confused. And I woke up, and I remember I was looking up in the ceiling, and I was like, gosh, what is this shaking? We have a train, a railroad next to us. I was like, is that the train? I've never felt anything like that. And then I was like, oh my God, my body, it's still tremoring. And it was doing that while I was sleeping. I have stories of people that if we've had like a workshop where we've been doing a lot of tremoring, they wake up in the middle of the night from their body starting to tremor. It's starting to release by itself. It's kind of amazing. Then this is your body. It's not your conscious mind.
Funny, that happened to me yesterday, and I didn't really connect the dots in the same way. I mean, I was aware of it, and I knew that there was something, and it's beautiful. But I sat in a meditation, and then after that, there was this sense of energy running through my body, this sense of sort of shaking there. And it was really interesting because it came up even more strongly after the experience. And then I could just sit with that and just enjoy that this is a beautiful flow going on, because that's what it feels like to me. It feels like flow. And can I maintain that powerful flow, or will I be too much in inverted commas if I'm able to hold that much movement? Because we're meant to be flowing like rivers, but we just contain it because it's so-called not acceptable in the society.
It's looked at as weakness or vulnerability. And I guess also it's not understood. So people respond to it with fear because it looks kind of weird. And also the fact that we are a society of so much control, that here you have to kind of let go of that control and allow something to happen. And I think that's why we see more women in this work than men. And I think it's because women are so used to being a part of nature. I mean, you have your menstruation every month. There's nothing you can do about it. it happens whether you want to or not. You just have to surrender to that fact and adapt to it. You get pregnant. Well, it's going to happen. It's going to go its course. You're going to be giving birth. Well, it's going to happen. You don't have much say. You just have to go with it. So I think women are more adapted to letting go and allowing processes to run its course. It's not so scary to us because of nature has its way with us, whether we want to or not, in so many aspects. Men has that, of course, too, but not so concrete. So this is my own personal philosophy around it. I don't know if it's true or not, but just some thoughts I've had in relationship to why that is so.
I imagine, and you were talking about brainwaves earlier, I imagine, and again, I have no idea if there's science or anything behind this, but this is just my personal intuition feeling right now. I imagine that we could tap into every single one of those, depending on our ability to be that pipe, be that container. Reaching gamma, if we can fully surrender into that tremor and then surrender even more and then surrender even more, it's going to take us to different heights. I love the interconnection in all of this work, all of the philosophies. When you hear the same message spoken in different ways from different people and from different modalities all over the place, and then you distill it down, you go, they're saying the same thing. That's where my mind always tunes into and says, that's the truth. And you just spoke it from one language. Think about Joe Dispenza's work and how he gets people into that state and the gamma, and they've done the science with that. And then you've got this, you seeing it a lot more now, the Kundalini awakening stuff, where there's a lot of actually the body's moving as well. It's different language, but really, if you were to just simplify the whole thing, it's the same things happening. Really.
Exactly. And it's like I see Kundalini. I have to actually talk to some of my groups that are very steady in this. Kundalini releases by itself naturally. They don't know what it is. So I have to talk to them about how to handle it. In terms of Joe Dispenza, a lot of the I've gotten so inspired by him in a lot of this work. In terms of brainwaves, what you were talking about there is fascinating me. I'm just in conversation with a guy who does a lot of brainwave entrainment. We're going to have a conversation. I'm very, very curious to what, because I so would like to measure it, but it's a little difficult with the EEG when you have so much movement in the body,
Right.
Because you get disturbance.
Can you, sorry to jump in just because it's fresh, because Bruce Lipton talks about you can have the magnetic, I don't know how you pronounce it, but the magnetic encephalogram. So you can actually measure from the outside these different things. Maybe just look that up and see, because I don't know if that's a possibility.
Cool.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I'd love to see. I know it's funny because I don't need the science, but it's always fun to get it as well, because I know from you and your work and my experience as well. No one has to show me that this stuff that you're talking about is actually happening and working. I know it. But when you can see it on paper or on screen and see these imagery of what's actually happening, that is a beautiful super force to really just amplify the trust and belief in really what's happening. So.
It helps bringing it out. I had a patient she had an appointment with me, and she called and she said, I drove off the road, I'm going to be late. And she was standing in the treatment room and telling me how her car had slid up. It was icy, had slid off the road and twisted off into a field. And she said, and everything was well, but of course it was a very violent experience when you lose total control. You're just stuck there in a car that's spinning out of control. I mean, it's scary, And she said she stepped out of the car and she felt her body. She was whole, and she pulled up her mobile phone to to call for help. And she said she was shaking so hard, she couldn't hit the numbers. And she was telling me this with fear. And I said, oh my God, that's amazing. That's so good. And she looked at me like, you are nuts. And then I just explained to her what it is. I explained to her that this is just your body trying to normalize and release the insane tension, the insane fear, the insane loss of control and fear of losing your life that happened when your car just spun off the road at high speed. Yes, it went well, but your body needs to release it. So I explained this to her, and then she was like, oh, yeah. And I said, what you do now, when you come home, you just lay down on the floor, in your bed, on the couch, wherever, and you lay there with your knees bent and just see if you can tune into that feeling that you had right there when you couldn't hit the numbers on your phone. What was that? And if a tremor comes to your body, just allow it. Just allow it to come. Just be open to it and see what it does. And if it becomes too intense, just stretch out your legs, stand up, walk around. It'll calm down. It'll stop right away. And then you can lay back down again and you can try a little bit again and see what happens. She came back a week later and she said, that was amazing. She just allowed this to happen. She had no stress reaction afterwards. Besides that, she had no physical pain, injuries, trauma, muscle stretches, nothing. This is a car she was driving 70, 80 kilometers an hour, spinning uncontrollably off the road into a field. I don't know how many swirls she did, but she was tossed around in there. How the body didn't have any kind of stiffness, at least from that, I have no explanation of. But she accepted the tremor into her body and just allowed it to work through her right away. Or as soon as she could afterward, when she understood what it was. But people get scared because they don't understand it. And that lack of understanding, like you were saying, like if we can use science to show what's going on, that would be wonderful.
Well, I guess that's very simply put, that's how the energy gets stuck in our system.
Yeah.
Because we have, how many traumas, mini traumas perhaps, and big ones, but how many are we both going to, and anyone listening, we're going to go through today? Even tiny, tiny little ones.
Yes.
And imagine if you practice your work with neurogenic tremoring and you can start to recognize there was a little shock. It could be I was about to walk across the road and a car's coming past and I just noticed it last minute and stayed on the curb.
Yeah.
Nothing happened.
Exactly.
But you recognize that little shock in the system, right? And then we might walk across the road, go to the shop and go home and not actually process that fully. And then we've got this thing locked in. But this might take a few seconds if we just recognized it, as you said, and said, hey, this is something natural. Can I just allow this to just be? That could take a few seconds, if not a few minutes. It's fine. It's worth it for the long term. This is another beautiful game changer. I love it. I'm so grateful that you're doing this, and I'm so grateful that someone with your passion is doing this as well. Because you're like a kid in a candy store when I met you.
I know.
Excited to get on stage, and I was like, okay, well, I definitely got to go to this.
Yeah, I love sharing about this. It's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing. David Berceli, Dr. David Berceli, who developed this, he says, and it's rightfully so. I remember he said this 16 years ago when I first met him, and now it's definitely not any better, that stress and trauma is he said epidemic. Now I guess we could qualify as a pandemic, because it's so hard to escape. I've stopped watching news years ago. There's nothing I can do. So why would I take it in? What I can do is try to help people deal with it in the best possible way. So that's my mission, my purpose. And so it's we live in exciting times with everything that comes with it.
One thing I recognize about your work, and the name of this podcast is Isumataq. Many people are not going to know what that word is.
I looked it up. I loved it.
It's the sacred space where wisdom reveals itself.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's so normal, because I realized that's actually one of the foundations for this podcast. It was never meant to be that way, but I realized this is a foundational piece for why I'm interested in this work myself. Because I always struggled with, say, sharing my emotions and opening up to people. And it was only upon reverse engineering that and trying to figure out those moments where I could open up and those moments where I couldn't, what was the difference there? And simply put, it was when somebody was sitting there with no judgment and complete trust and just allowing me to be without trying to change or fix anything about me, but also being there for me. And then the people I couldn't open up to, I could feel an invisible force field of, I've got to defend myself here because I can't even express myself enough before you start to fix. So there was this beautiful realization of how important space holding is. And your work is space holding extremely, because you have to be able to hold space, and your awareness and knowing and understanding of what's happening. Because if you just put someone else that's maybe good at space holding, let's say, put them in the situation that you're in a room full of people, or a single person tremoring, and they've never experienced that before, their space holding maybe, for excuse the pun, shaken up a little, because they don't understand it. But because you've built up such a deep trust and you know exactly what's going on, you know it's safe, therefore that space holding then becomes extremely powerful for the other person, because you're not running over and going, stop, be careful. You're actually just doing this. And that's where, to me, the magic lies. It leads me to the question, really, is I'd love to know, what is your perception of space holding?
It is a combination of different things, of different factors. It's the ability to create a space of safety where the individual or group feel that they can relax into and feel safe. The facilitator, I think, in order to be a good space holder, has to be non-judgmental. So they've had to do a fair amount of work on themselves. You yourself have to have been through the shame, through the pain, through the terror, the fear, the rage, all of those emotions, and recognize them in yourself, having truly felt them yourself and worked through them yourself, so that when you see other people hit those, that you understand from a deep level that you cannot judge this. And actually, it shouldn't even be a thought. You just don't judge it because you've been there. You know what it feels like. You know what it takes, what kind of courage it takes to actually touch on it and work through it. So there is no, to hold space, you cannot have any judgment with you. The less you have, the better you are at holding space. So there comes the heart, right? To be in your heart. That doesn't mean that you sit down and cry next to the person. That means that you are standing in your own field of love, accepting what's going on, being open to what's going on, but you don't interfere unless the person needs it. But you don't interfere in a way like, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm petting on their shoulder, or not necessarily. I hardly ever touch people, because you have to, there is a respect around their process, but I let them know that I'm there. It's about being grounded. And it's also, of course, knowing what you're doing without saying a bad word that almost slipped out. You have to know what you're doing. You know, you have to understand what you are actually doing, that you're opening up things here that, yeah, we usually, when you train to become a TRE provider, as it's called, you, at least I did that when I trained 16 years ago, that you learn to see the signs of things coming up in people usually before they know it themselves. So when I work with groups, I can modulate a single person in that group. Like if I have 100 people in a room, I don't have a chance to go over to that person necessarily. But if I see something coming up, I keep an eagle eye on on everyone. And if I see something that comes up, you can modulate the whole group. I can talk to one person on the mic, and it helps everyone, including that person. It's like seeing what is necessary that benefits everyone. So you can get back to self-regulation through your breath, through your heart, through the surface you are laying on, to get back to yourself and not get caught and leave yourself in the process of what you release. You kind of go away with whatever it is that you're releasing. If you get my point, you get hooked in what you're releasing instead of staying in yourself and allowing it to go. So seeing those signs in people, you can modulate that and make it a soft process that they are in control of themselves, and that creates a huge sense of safety. So there are many factors in creating space, holding space.
Thank you. Really loved hearing your version of that, and it's just so beautiful.
Yeah, never get caught in anybody else's process.
Never get
That
caught
has
in
to do with
process.
respecting their space. Support, never get caught in it, because then you can't hold space for that person. I've cried many times, but not in that, oh, poor you. I mean, it's a different way. It's like if you hug someone, you're fully present for them, not like in their trauma experience.
I came to have this deeper realization of how, or at least me seeing or perceiving everybody as they are very sacred. Every single individual is sacred. Now, if we can be with that, almost in reverence. I'm sitting beside a king. I'm sitting beside a queen right here. And maybe they're crying. Maybe they're shaking. Maybe they're just puking. Maybe they're whatever their process is. If we have this ability to maintain that remembrance and knowing that this being in front of me is sacred, that's this namaste aspect of seeing that this is all right. Because in my experience also, when you cry, we go too quickly into pity.
Yes.
When that crying, in the same way as tremoring is, it's just something happening and releasing, and it doesn't need to have somebody to run over and grab you and hold you and get you. Just, hey, this is, because sometimes if I cry in a process or whatever, it could be I've got anger, I've got sadness, I've got gratitude, and it's all happening at the same time, and just woof, coming out. Just
Pure
let it be.
joy. That's what I'm tearing up about now, because hearing you say this sacred space, that is so beautiful and so essential. It's, oh, yes, it's sacred. All this work is truly sacred. Ugh, sorry. Oh.
Thank you for sharing your tears. Beautiful.
They come easy on me, unfortunately. I have a friend, she says, your water table is really high. I was like, that's a funny way of putting it, but it's true. Yeah, no, that really got me. Oh, it's so true. Sacred.
One of the words that touched me before you were talking about the space holding was rage and anger. You know, they're very similar. And that's the thing when you're talking about space holding. If somebody has not had the, I don't want to use the word courage actually, but had the experience of really processing deep layers of anger and rage within them, because we are all connected. It's a part of the spectrum of the emotions that we have very naturally within us as humans. So if anyone pushes that away and pretends that they don't have that, we're just kidding ourselves here. So to be able to have the experience of actually going through that rage and maybe processing and finding the wisdom that was once in that energy or emotion of rage or anger, whatever it is, it's in that popping of that bubble, so to speak, that allows that space holding. But if someone hasn't had the experience of going through, they're still working on the rage, but they haven't fully gone through it. And then they go to hold space that somebody needs that. I personally believe from my experience that they will not be able to fully go there. It's the magic of this person being able to go deep down into the depths, the ocean floor where all the rivers come in, and that allows that magic to occur. So it became part of my path that I did. It was all, I guess, always my path. Came the realization that this was my path, because I wondered, why do I just wake up every day and I just know I somehow need to make sure I'm in the depths? And it's not an ego thing. I'm looking for that. It's just, it comes up and I process and I go deeper than I thought I was going to. And I realized that is what helps me help people. I never planned this. I don't go to uni. I don't have many, all this stuff on the paperwork to show that. It's just from the willingness to go to the deep depths.
That's essential. And there I also feel that sometimes you can tap into some primal emotions that are not necessarily only yours as an individual. At least I have felt that working with rage. I remember I was working with that I had a 9-month long process on it. That was really intense a few years back. And I was like, is this truly mine? And I was wondering, gosh, I felt like I was tapping into like the collective subconscious in a way, that I experienced some like a human condition type thing that was so deep, so dark, so powerful, so insane, that I was like, what is this? I have nothing in my life that I have ever experienced in this lifetime that could justify, explain, cause any of this type of emotion. So that's why I was starting to explore, could this be like Jung talked about the collective unconscious. So I think there are so many surprises inside of us that to the people that I hold groups with in some of this work, I often say that all the stress and trauma and life experiences that we have, that we are running away from, and I'm not diminishing anybody's potentially horrible experiences here, but if you can look at them as treasures, that you have buried deep, deep on the ocean floor, like a big chest of inside is a magnificent treasure. And you have big chains and locks and stones and everything that's holding it down. And you're using all of this energy to hold down this thing because it was a traumatic experience. But if you're able to take away those chains, you don't use as much energy holding it anymore. And as you're working through that, you open this chest and it's a magnificent treasure because you're releasing all of the energy that you're using, yes, to stuff it away because you don't want to look at it, you don't want to feel it, you don't want to think about it, you don't want to have anything to do about it because it's just too painful. But if you're able to just take a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, all of a sudden you have this massive treasure of energy, of understanding, of a deeper human experience that makes you more compassionate, more connected to your heart, more able to see what's going on. Your senses increase. I mean, your physical senses become more alert. You see, experience like a deeper levels of reality because your awareness expands, your consciousness expands. You just get more room. That's kind of turning back to the beginning of our conversation where pain is a great teacher.
Mm-hmm.
If we allow it to. If we don't allow it, we suffer.
There can be a paradox with pain because I also agree because it's through the pain and then meeting it is where that wisdom for me arises. I find more peace and I can just get on and the resilience builds so much. But I also discovered a belief along the way that I had, and I know a lot of people have this kind of belief, and it's somewhat in the sense of I need pain in order to feel the pleasure. And then that becomes the goal of actually seeking out the pain. So it's how do we find this balance? Because we don't want the belief of always seeking pain. Otherwise, that's going to be a perpetual loop and we will find that every corner we go to. But instead, being able to meet it when at the right time and be fully with it. And there's a fine balance between that, but it's definitely something worth considering. I would do it with challenges as well. You can think about this belief in many different forms. I need a challenge in order to feel worthy. I need the pain in order to feel pleasure. And it's a very common thing. And when I started to shift those beliefs around that, wow, a lot opened up and it brought so much peace to my system.
How interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
When you were talking about the collective, I can't help but go there as well, because again, when I started doing my own work internally, it did really well. One of the things it stemmed from, I would say it stemmed from anger and depression, really. The anger piece was what I was really focusing on because it was like a fireball of energy, a fireball of emotion in my solar plexus area. And I would do all these different processes of practices and meditations to try and go in there and try and clear it and try and bring balance to it. And that became a journey there was about 4 years went past and I thought I'd made some progress. And I was thinking, we were talking earlier about relativity. It felt the same. It was just as intense. But then at some point, something shifted and clicked, and it's almost like that anger's not been there ever since. And I don't feel it, but it was this journey this whole way. And through me clearing and working through this journey, a lot of people started coming to work with me to work on exactly those topics. And that's why I'm so interested.
Very
Observing that natural space. It's a natural thing. It's not a learned textbook thing. You can't just read a book about it. It's an experiential. And the point being around the collective is that same for me. I've always had this since I was a child, this burning anger feeling, but I know I'm not an angry person.
Yeah.
I would have these outbursts with material things. I would smash my skateboards up and get angry at objects and throw things, but it never towards anyone or anything that would hurt anything. But then I realized this doesn't feel like me. It doesn't feel like just mine. This is collective. And I think there's something beautiful about when we do this inner work for ourselves and bring peace to these aspects to ourselves, that there may be direct correlation between things that have happened in our specific lives. But there's also, when we shift and clear that in the quantum field, things that we'll never see,
Guaranteed.
can never maybe prove. I trust that is happening every time we shift and heal and bring balance and beauty to these aspects, that it benefits the whole.
Oh, guaranteed. I think it does on even more concrete levels. If you've looked at HeartMath research,
Yeah.
our heart, it's not just like a thing that pumps blood around. It does so many things. It affects your hormones. It affects your ability to think. It has its own brain with its own long-term and short-term memory. I mean, it's wild. Right here, we always think about brain here, but you actually have a brain in your heart. And your heart also produces the biggest pulsating magnetic field in the body. It's not your brain, it's your heart. And it's like the magnetic field of the heart is 5,000 times stronger than the one of the brain. It's crazy. So it extends outside of you about 1.5 meters in all directions. And the frequency of that field changes with your emotional state. And it's also connected to the frequency of the magnetic field of the earth. So she's really our home in many, many ways. We belong here. We are part of her. We cannot. They're even looking into if the state of human beings can affect the earth. I'm not sure how they're doing this research, but they have sensors all over the planet. It's very interesting stuff. But what they have found is that your magnetic field of your heart influence and communicate with the magnetic field of the heart of the people around you. So there is actual interference, energetic, measurable interference between people. So you can actually, with your own heart field, entrain another person to your heart field without saying anything. It's just you kind of feel how somebody else is feeling. Could be that's where it's coming from. So if you have worked deeply with your emotions, you are naturally more connected to your heart. So what you're projecting into your field, and if you're then also conscious about it, what you're projecting into your field will influence the people around you. And here also we can take this right back to holding space for someone. I mean, it is so beautiful, because when I'm looking at again, if I go back to my groups, when we are physically together, I almost see the hearts connecting between people laying there, and everyone is holding space for everyone else in a beautiful, respectful, open, understanding. Why? Because we're all there together for the same thing. So yesterday I had a woman who was touching on to some really deep old patterns in herself that was holding her back, and just to watch how the group was taking care of her afterwards, giving her space at the same time as they gave their love. It was beautiful. But the heart of the whole group comes together because we are all connected. I mean, we're connected. We have a tendency, when we think about our spiritual background, in terms of understanding the unified field, the connection, the space of nothingness, where it's full of potential, frequency, and out of this consciousness is the whole creation. Is springing out of this, right? So we are all one. The universe experiences itself through its creation, and we are its creation. So this is why it's always expanding, because the universe is expanding its experience of itself through us. So yes, we are all one, and all of this is connected all the way down, but it's also connected on a fairly physical level, like a measurable magnetic field. It's Amazing. So when you work through all of these things in yourself, you become more resilient. You radiate that to the people around you. One of the things that they've measured with tremoring, for example, is that people report that their relationships become better, and people go, "Oh yeah, right. How can your relationship become better because you tremor every once in a while?" But it's because you are processing your inner stress, your tension, your holding back, your hiding from yourself, your lack of sharing and connection with other people. So when you process these things, your connection increases, your heart expands, and becomes stronger, and like everything. Of course, it's going to affect your relationship because you are different, so you get a different response.
It's something that we can practice every single day as well. So really, it's actually a really fun thing to do. I do it in cafes, I do it on trains, I do it in public transport, supermarket, anywhere you can do that. Obviously, it's much easier if you've maybe just done a practice, whatever it could be, a tremoring exercise, and you feel shifted and more expanded and balanced, and then go out and see and just observe. You don't have to be always on the lookout, but just ever so softly observe. Does the energy feel a little bit softer in this space
Mm-hmm.
since I've arrived?
Mm.
Because I swear, even if you don't get this exercise right from day one, by just practicing it and being playful with it, you start to have a much finer radar of the subtleties of energy. And you start to recognize these little things. And there may still be noise and there may still be things going on, but you can sense that something has shifted, and you may even notice it in the conversations have gone from
Oh yes,
drama soap operas to more about unity and more about balance and love. And you can notice these little subtle shifts, and as you said, from that HeartMath awareness of our energies are connected, like these fields of energy, as they blend together, all of a sudden, like bubbles, they just become a bigger bubble. And it's a lot of fun to do.
it is, and I encourage that to do it consciously. When I'm with my patients and someone has had a horrible experience and they dive into that trauma, I immediately start breathing from my heart and connecting to my heart and connecting to my emotions that lift me. And usually then they don't have to tell the same story like 3 or 4 or 5 times. It's enough with one or two. Because that often happens. I mean, you're a coach, so you know that sometimes you can get stuck in a trauma loop and you can't get out of it because your brain is just spinning on it. But it helps lifting people out. I've done that so many times. Whenever I remember, when I come into a new space, I want to help lift the energy. Sometimes I catch myself that I'm being, here I'm talking about the news and the war and the this and the that and the climate and all the stuff. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Just take a breath, go to your heart. What do we really want to talk about? Why do we talk about that when we have so many good things that lift everybody?
And you just shared an amazing tool that I love the way you phrased it. And so I'm going to use it, and just reminding anyone listening, try it out. When we're in these conversations, as you were talking about, and maybe it's going down the kind of wrong path, so to speak. It's a bit drama negative. Obviously, with you need to gauge the level of kind of consciousness in the moment of the group and see, are these people going to be open to this kind of question. But I love how you said it, taking a breath and maybe just saying to everyone, hey, what do we really want to talk about? And just let that question just drop. Because,
That's a very direct way of doing it.
yeah, but that's why I said you got to pick your right people.
There you go, to pick your right people.
But at the same time, when you drop that kind of question, you realize, what do you really want to talk about?
Mm.
For me, I'm probably going to say, I want to talk about music, or I want to talk about martial arts, or, and these kinds of things. And someone else will get, oh, I love that too. And before you know it, you can start to have these conversations. So anyway, I love that. I'm going to use that question. I wondered, before we jump off, do you have anything to share with the listeners of how they an exercise, not to go into the exercise, but perhaps just a few steps that someone could perhaps try when it comes to tremoring, maybe tonight when they're lying in bed, or maybe this afternoon if they're going through something or just want to practice? Are there a few steps that they can just practice, at least just become into the awareness of that and get the starting point?
The best way of explaining it without showing any, I mean, it's a little hard to show it in here, but you can do some gentle stretches first, standing up, like stretching backwards, bending forwards, just to kind of activate your body a little bit. And then especially around the hip flexors, if you know where those are, in the front of your body, connecting your leg to your pelvis. So stretching in there a little bit, just to kind of wake up those muscles. And then you lay down on your back and you bend your knees. And you put your feet together like this. And soles of the feet like this. So your feet are kind of like in a butterfly position. Not too close up towards your midline, but a little further away from you, and like a kind of an open book or open butterfly wings, like your knees apart. And just rest there a little bit, because then you'll feel a stretch on the inside of your thighs. And then after like 30 seconds to a minute in that position, still with the soles of your feet together like that, you can lift your pelvis off the surface underneath you. And you just stand, and it's heavy, but that's a little bit the point. And you stand there, and you have to squeeze the muscles in your buttocks a little bit, and you have to kind of balance on your feet a little bit. So it's a little bit challenging. So your muscle have to work, and maybe you'll start feeling like a swaying type motion, or maybe you'll start feeling like your pelvis is starting to kind of shake a little bit up and down, and just feel into that. And then if it becomes too intense, if it's too heavy or uncomfortable, just lay back down again and rest, and let your feet or your knees fall apart, and rest there for a little bit again. And then you can lift up again. And you do that like 2-3 times. And then you put your pelvis back down on the floor, and with your knees far apart, you just lift your knees up. If my fingertips are my knees, then you lift your knees a little closer, just a couple of centimeters, 2-3 centimeters up, and you hold there, and you will feel that the muscles on the inside of your thigh really has to work, right? And then you just lay there for a couple of minutes. If you need a rest, stretch out your legs and go back up again. And then you lift a little bit more, and you hold there, and you lift a little bit more, and you hold there. And somewhere on this journey where your knees are almost like close to the floor, to where they're like up here, you might come to a point where all of a sudden you feel this thing happen, like your knees are going kind of like that, or that you feel that your pelvis is like moving quickly back and forth. Then check into that. Just notice it. Let your awareness go there. Allow it. It could be very, very faint in the beginning, but just breathe into it, allow it, and see if there is anything that you can do to increase it, invite it more. If there's a certain tension, if you need to move your knees a little closer, a little further apart. It's just to experiment basically with it. For some people, it comes really easy. For other people, it's a little more difficult, but it's just a practice. If you really get it going, you really feel that, oh my gosh, here is a lot of tremoring. If it becomes too much, just stretch out your legs and relax. If it still won't stop, then tense up bring your toes close to your body, push your heels away from you, and tense up the muscles in your entire leg as it's long. It'll stop. Or get up and walk around a little bit. So it's a way to explore. If you when you lay with your feet, the soles of your feet together like that, and your knees out, and you feel that tremor, if it feels good, if you can relax into it easy, you can take your soles of your feet and turn them flat on the floor. Then it becomes even more relaxing. And that's usually when the tremor is really established. Then you don't use any muscle to help you at all. Then it's pure brainstem. It's pure nervous system that is moving you. And then see what happens. And if this works well for you, I would say don't practice about, I would say maximum in the beginning, maximum 15 minutes at a time, maximum 3 times a week. So you just kind of ease into it a little bit. So that's the easiest way to explain it in words of how to access it.
What a gift. Thank you so much for sharing that.
If people are really interested in this, I have 2 websites. One that is pure tremoring. And on there we have a course, a video course that you can learn from. And we have also like live sessions that you can come to. So if you have experience, if you have learned this from someone already, you can just sign up for the sessions, and they're all different kinds of facilitators using their points of view on this. It's a very interesting way. If you haven't, you should learn it first. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for you on the sessions. So we want to actually offer 50% off on our 1-year membership. If you want to do that, then you have the course and 1 year of tremoring sessions that, I don't know, there are many a week. So it's very easy to join. And if you don't feel up for a whole year of membership right away and just want to take the course, it's not very expensive, but we'll give you another $10 off if you want to do that. So we'll give you a code to explore that. And on our other website for the Integrated Human, if you're interested in seeing what we're doing there, we're like, okay, so let's do something. It's Steve. So we decided to give like a 20% off on the whole, whatever we have in the store there, including our workshop for anybody who wants to join that for like 3 weeks. So we'll get you a code for both of those.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, we really want to spread this. So if this helps, then
fantastic. Thank you so much. That's amazing. Yeah. And you're on Instagram? And
yes, we
where
are.
else?
Both companies are on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook and everything, of course.
And all the links will be down in the description.
Cool, thank you.
This has been such a delight to chat to you, Siv. And I didn't even say your full name, and I rarely do when I go on this podcast with anybody, because they just become such we're just chatting like friends, you know.
Yeah. No, I really, really, really enjoyed connecting with you again. It's been too long, so it was really wonderful to connect. Besides the recording of this, just to sit and talk like this is so wonderful. So I really, really appreciate it so much. Thank you so much. You are the most amazing person. It's a pleasure to have gotten to know you. I'm really grateful for that. Yeah.
So much love. And anyone listening, go and check out her work. And if you can make it live, fly to Norway, fly to Voss, see where she's going, because it's incredible this work. It's incredible.
Oh no, you're making me cry again.
Incredible to experience the in-person experience, as well as just following beautiful guidance you shared with us as well. So can't wait to see you in person again.
Same with you.
Ciao.
Ciao. Thank you, Stephen.